Hi, in this video I want to talk about some very amazing components. For example, I want to show you how to teleport your user to a special place of your land. I want to show you how to define a key in the keyboard so that if the user presses that key and a special thing happens. I want to show you how to grab an object or how to add physical behavior to the object. How to add force to an object so that you can throw that object to a special place. How an object can affect the trigger, because in previous I have talked about the trigger and also the main player that affecting the trigger by getting inside or outside that. But now I want to talk about how objects can affect the trigger by getting inside or outside. So before talking about all these components and show you how to use them, I want to show you an example I have created and for this example in the game I have used all these components I want to talk about. So let's go and see this example, and as you can see I'm standing near one of my buildings, Winter Night Cafe, that I have created all these buildings outside and inside that by the Metaverse package. You can have the Metaverse package by going to the packages and purchasing that, and you can use the Metaverse in all your lands. So let's go and see what we have. Alright, let's go and see what we have in the Winter Night Cafe. As you can see, all this amazing environment is created just by the Metaverse package. Awesome! The first thing I should do is to speak with this man and accept playing the game, and after clicking on the next and after clicking on the let the game start, first of all my avatar is teleported to the special place of this land. So let's click on this button to see. As you can see, I'm teleported now and I'm standing on a red block. That means I cannot get outside this block. If I get outside I will lose the game. I should stand in here and I should grab some potions and throw them towards this devil snowman to destroy them by the power of the potions. I can do that by clicking on this potion. If I clicked on that, this potion is grabbed, and now I can have a good angle of throwing, and if I clicked on the edge on the keyboard I can add a force to the potion and make the potions to be thrown to the snowman. Also this potion has physical behavior, for example as the gravity affected to this potion. So, and if the potion hits the snowman starts to destroy, and that's how entering an object inside the trigger works. So let's check that and let's play the game a little bit. So I will click on the edge. Oh, I couldn't. Let's try that again. No. Let's throw to this snowman. Yes, that's it. And that's how this game works. And in this game I have used all these components. I want to talk about that later. So let's start the work with the teleport. So let's go on. Okay, here I'm in the builder and I want to talk about the teleport component. Actually, the teleport component starts to change the place of the main player to another place by a special events. Let me show you an example. Here I want when my player clicked on this NPC character in there, start to teleport to the roof of this building. And for doing that, first of all I will select my character in there and let's go to the component and make it clickable. And I want an event to be defined to teleport my user. So in here I define an event called the test teleport. And after that, I need to add a teleport component to any object of my scene. It doesn't matter what object you are selecting because teleport is not related to the object you are adding to. For example, you can add the teleport to this NPC character or you can add it to any other object. For example, I will select this light in there and let's go to the main player. And from that, I will add a teleport to that. And in the event to start teleport, I want to define the event I have created by clicking on this NPC character, and the event name is test teleport. Also, I need to set the place of the teleports by clicking on this button in here, and after clicking I can see a doll in there that shows the place of the teleport. I want to move it by holding the middlemost button and panning. I can change the place of the doll to something like the roof. For example, I want to put it in the center of the roof. I hold the rightmost button and start to rotate the camera, and as you can see the doll start to move also. I think this place is okay. Now I can control the rotation of the teleport. At the moment when the user starts to teleport to this place, the direction of the user is toward this side. If you want to change the direction of the user, you can control that by using the rotation. So I will change it to something like 90 degrees so that the direction be towards this direction. And after I'm dealing with the result and the place of the teleport, I will make this button off. And from now on, the place of my teleport will start same by changing the place of the camera. And also you can define another event after teleporting to the special place. For example, after the user teleports to this place, you want to send another event to the land, but at the moment I don't want, and now I want to check the result. If my user clicks on this NPC character, starts to teleport to this place. So let's check the result. Alright, now I'm moving towards the NPC character in here, and if I clicked on that, I will teleport towards the roof of the building, and that's how the teleport will work. The next thing I want to talk about is how to define a special key on the keyboard so that if the user clicked on that key, it start to do something. For example, I want to define a key on the keyboard so that if the user clicks on that, it start to teleport in here instead of clicking on the NPC character. So let's see how we can define such this input. Now, instead of clicking on this NPC character and teleporting to the roof, let's assign a special key on the keyboard so that it does the same job. And for doing this, we need another component called the input button. Actually, you can select any object of the scene and add input button to that, because input button is not related to the object that you are adding to. You can select this snowman, you can select this character, and again, you can select this lamp. So let's select this lamp and go to the add components, and from the input, let's add input button. And let's open to see what we have. Again, enable, event to disabled, and toggle are the same as the other components, and I don't want to talk about that. The other thing we have is the key selection, which consists of some predefined keys that you can add to your events. And in here, F, G, H, and J are the keys. And because I have used the H for throwing magical potion towards the snowman, I want to use another key. For example, I use the F, which is the default selection. We have two kinds of event. One event for the on key down, which is for the time when the user pushes the key or holds the key. And the other one is on key up, is for the time when the user releases the key. Because I want when the user pushes the key, starts to teleport to the roof, I define the event to this part. So I define the test teleport in here. And let's save the work and check the result. Alright, now let's check the result. If I clicked on the F on the keyboard, as you can see, my avatar is teleported to the roof again. And that's how you can assign a key to your events. And now I want to talk about the grab. So let's see how we can grab an object. It's very, very easy. So let's do that. Now let me show you how to grab an object, and for doing this I want to add a new object to the scene. So let's go to the game starter package, for example, and let's go to the sport and add the soccer ball to the scene. Also, let's change the position of the soccer ball to the position that I want, and also I move the soccer ball a little bit up because I want to talk about the rigid body after the grab, but at the moment I just want to focus on the grab. And because I want to grab this object, I will select that, and from the add component, I will go to the interaction and select the grab component. Actually, the grab is very related to the object that you are adding to, and in this example, because I wanted to grab this soccer ball, I select the soccer ball and add the grab component. And let's open to see what we have. As you can see, we have just two event receivers. One is for grabbing the object and the other one is for releasing the object, which are opposite with each other. And because I want to grab the object, I should define an event in here, and this event is related to you and your game. For example, you want to make your object clickable, and after clicking on that, start to grab. You can define a special key on the keyboard so that if the user presses that key, start to grab. Or you can add another event, for example, after talking with a special NPC character or after a special event, the object should be grabbed. And it's always depends to you. And in this example, because I want to make my object clickable, and after clicking start to grab the soccer ball, I will go to the add component again, and from the input, and let's add a click input, and on the click event let's define something, for example grab soccer, and I should add the grab soccer in here. And now when I clicked on this ball, start to grab that. So let's check it. Now let's go to grab our object, but before doing that I want to notify you something, that the object is floating on the air without having any physical behavior. And in the next part I want to show you how to add the ball physical behavior by using the rigid body components. But at the moment just I want to grab this object by clicking on that to show you, and as you can see the ball is grabbed now and I can move anywhere I want, and as you can see the ball is moving with me. And that's how the grab component works. So let's go to see how we can add physical behavior to the object by adding the rigid body. Now I want to add some physical behavior to the soccer ball. Whenever you want to add some physical behavior to your object, first of all you should select your object, and after that go to the add components, and from the physics let's add rigid body to your object. And now let's open that to see what we have. Again, these are the things that I have talked about them earlier. So I will start my work with a mass. Actually, the mass controls how much heavy your object is. The more you set your mass, the heavier your object will be, and the more heavier your object will be, you will have the effect of the gravity more on your object. Or when you add, for example, force to your object, it will travel less amount of distance compared to the times that you have less amount of the mass. And the other thing is the drag, that controls the resistance of the air when your object is moving on. That means when you set it on the higher values, you will have higher amount of resistance for the air. For example, if I throw my soccer ball to somewhere, it again travels less amount of distance compared to the times that I have less amount for the drag. And angular drag controls the resistance for the rotation of your object. That means if I set it on the higher value, my object will rotate harder compared to the times that I have less amount of angular drag. And this toggle controls the effect of the gravity. If it's on, you will have the effect of the gravity, and if it's off, you don't have the effect of the gravity and your object will float on the air. So I will make it on. And the bounce control how much bounces your object will have when hits to another object. For example, when the soccer ball hits to the ground, how much bounces it should have. And when you want to control the resistance between the surface and the object which is moving on the surface, you can control that by the friction. In other words, friction controls if the surface is slippery or sticky when your object is moving on. And we have these toggles to control the axis of the X, Y, and Z for the position or rotation. We can make them freeze. And when you are using that, always take care, because if you don't know the effect of freezing a special axis, maybe it will give you unpredictable result. For example, if I freeze the Y position, because the effect of the gravity is on the Y position, I will lose the effect of the gravity. So when you want to freeze a special axis, always take care of that. All right. Now I want to see the effect of the rigid body on my object, but because I want to see the effect whenever I pushes the G on the keyboard, first of all, I make disable by default, and let's go to the component, and from the input, I will add the input button to that, and I will set my key selection to something like G, and on key down event, I set it, for example, to something like rigid body. Alright, now I will define the rigid body to make my rigid body enabled. Alright, now let's see what we have in there. Alright, now let's go on to see the result in here. As you can see, the soccer ball doesn't have any rigid body by default, but when I clicked on the G, I can see the effect of the gravity on the soccer ball. But when the soccer ball hits on the ground, there is no bounces for that. So I want to add some bounces for the soccer ball. When it hits on the ground, I can see some bounces. So I will go to the builder again. And now let's select the soccer ball again, and let's go to the rigid body, and from the bounces, let's change it from the 0 to something like 4, and let's save the work and see the result again. Now let's go and see the result in here. I get near the soccer ball and click on the G, and as you can see I have some bounces for the soccer ball when it hits on the ground. Now I want to show you how to add force to your object, so let's go on. Now I want to show you how to add force to your objects. So let's work on another object and leave the soccer ball as it is. I will go to the game starter again, and this time from the sport I want to add this basketball to the scene, and let's just change the position of this basketball to the position I want. And I want to add a force, so I will go to the add component, and from the physics I will add a force to the list. But one thing you should bear in mind, that the force will always work on the physical object. That means if you don't have rigid body in your list and the force, and open the force, you can see that there is no rigid body component attached to this object. So you should have a rigid body first. You can have your own rigid body, or you can click on the rigid body component to add it automatically to the list. Now the force will work fine. We have two types for the force. One is a pulse and the other one is a constant. But what is the difference between the pulse and constant? Actually, the pulse is a one-time force to your object. Whenever you are creating games like the soccer ball game or the basketball games, each time you are hitting the ball, actually you are adding a one-time force to your object, and that's why you should use a pulse. But let's imagine that your object is standing at the front of a fan, and that fan is on. In that case, your fan is adding a constant force to your object. Or let's imagine you are creating a car racing game, and you want when you are holding or pushing a key on the keyboard, your car start to move. In that case, while you are holding that button, you are adding a constant force to your object, and that's why you should use a constant instead of pulse. The other thing is the space. We have three kinds of a space: of global, local, and camera direction, that I want to talk about them a little bit later. And the amount controls the strength of the force that you are adding to your object. The more you set the amount, you will have a stronger force. Also, the direction controls which direction your object should move. For example, and this direction is very related to the space. As you can see in the global, the Y is always towards the up, the X is always towards the left, and the Z is always towards outside. So if I set a direction, for example 005 for my object, when I add force to this object, no matter which direction I'm adding the force, no matter where I'm standing and adding the force, no matter which rotation my object has, each time I add the force, my object will move towards this side, because in the global system, the Z is always towards this side. But if I change the global space to something like local space, the local is very dependent to the rotation of your object. Let me show you. If I rotate my object, as you can see, because my move gizmo is on the local system too, as you can see, the direction of the axis changes. Now, if I add the force on this object, again, no matter where I'm standing and adding the force, no matter which is the angle of view, my object will always move towards the new direction of the Z, which is rotated by the rotation of my object. But one of the most used system for this space is the camera direction, that is very related to the direction you are adding the force. It's really very related to the angle of view you are adding the force. For example, when I'm on the camera direction space and adding the force from this direction, I'm looking at the object will move towards the front. If I stand here and adding the force from this side, my object will move towards this side. And that's how the camera direction will move. And also, the event to apply the pulse force is an event that controls when your object should get the force. For example, I want to make this object clickable, and after clicking on this object, I want to send an event, and that event start to add the force to this object. So I will go to the add components, and from the input, I will add a click input, and let's set the on click event to something like force test. And after that, in the force, I will set it on the force test. So let's add the force test. Now, if I save the work and see the result for the camera direction space, You can see if I stand in this area and clicked on this object will move towards in here, and the force is moving the object to this side. Let me show you, as you can see. Now let me go and stand to the other side. For example, if I stand to the other side and clicked on this object, as you can see, the object goes to this side. And if I stand to this side and clicked on this object again, as you can see, the object goes to this side. And that's how the camera direction will work if I set the direction to something like 005. Now I want to check the 005 for also for the local and the global to check the results. So let's back to the builder. And now let me select the basketball in there and let's go to the force. And this time I want to use the global. If I use the global, no matter where I'm standing and clicking on this object will always move towards this side, because this is the direction of the z-axis in the world system and in the global system. So let's check it out. Now if I clicked on this object will move towards this side. It gets near me. Let me show you. And if I clicked on this object from this side, again this object will move towards the door. And if I click from this side, again the object will move towards the door, because the direction is the same in all the no matter where I'm standing. And that's how the global system works. Let's back and test the local. And now I will select the basketball again and go to the force, and this time I will change the space to something like local. This time if I clicked on this object will move towards this side, because this is the local direction of the Z. So let's check it out. Alright, now I want to test clicking on this object to see the effect of the force in the local system. If I clicked on this object will move in this side. So let's test that. And that's how the local system can work in the force. Alright, I think it's enough for talking about the force. And now I want to show you how an object can affect the trigger. So let's go on. For the last part of the video, I want to talk about effect of an object on a trigger. Earlier, I talked about the trigger and say trigger is an area that by entering or exiting that a special event can be happened. Those days, our trigger just accepted the main player. That means if the main player got inside or outside the trigger and a special event was sending to the land. But now in our latest update, our trigger can accept the objects too. And now I want to show you how. For this example, I want to select one of the blocks on the ground and define a trigger for that, so that if the basketball get inside the trigger and a special text appear on the HUD that is written, for example, trigger entered, or when the basketball get outside the trigger, another text will appear on the HUD that is written trigger exit. And for doing this, I will select one of the blocks on the ground, so I will select that, and let's go to the add component, and from the object I will add the trigger. So let's open the trigger in there, and for the target I will change it from the main player to the object, because I want this trigger to accept the objects, and also to get ensured that this trigger accept the objects correctly and all the calculations are correct. I change the box size a little bit. For example, I increase the amount of the Y to something like 5. And now I need to define the target tags. But what is a target tags? We define the target so that our trigger can accept the objects with a special tag. And for defining a tag, I should select my objects that I want the trigger to accept. For example, I want a trigger to accept this basketball. I will select that, and let's go to the default, and in the tag I will define a tag in there. So I define, for example, ball. And now back to the trigger again, and let's click on the new tag and define the ball there. Now this trigger accepts all the objects with the tag ball. Alright, now I need a trigger enter event and also trigger exit. So for doing this, let's add two templates. one template for the trigger enter and the other one is trigger exit. So let's go to the add component, and from the add, let's go to the templates. And for the first template, I will change the category from the title to text effect because I think it's more better. And for the first one, I want trigger enter text. And let's change the text size a little bit. And also I want to define an event for that. So I called it enter. All right. Now I want to copy this template and paste that. And for the event to play, this one, I change it to exit. And let's change the text also to trigger exit. All right. Now I want to define these two events on the trigger. One for the on trigger enter. And the other one for the on trigger exit. All right. Now I want to change the material of my block in there so that I can understand when my object is getting inside or when is getting outside. So let's change the material to check that. For example, I will use this material for that. And let's save my work and test it. All right, now I want to test my trigger. As you can see, if my main player get inside that or get outside the trigger, nothing happens because this trigger just accepts the objects. So let's go and add force to this object to make it enter the trigger to see what's happening. So if I click on that, when it gets entered the trigger, I have the trigger enter text. So let's click on that again to get outside. And when it gets outside, the trigger exit is written on the HUD. And I can repeat this action again. Trigger enter. And let's click on that one more time. Trigger exits. And that's how trigger can work. And I have used this trigger trick for the snowman so that if I throw the potions toward the snowman, when the potion hits the snowman starts to destroy. And that's how entering or exiting an object into a trigger can work. I hope this tutorial was useful for you. Have a good time. Good luck.